So it's a great pleasure for me to be able to be with you all and also share some research. And I've called my talk Cultural Metapragmatics, a Nordic View on Speaking and Speakers. So I think a lot of great things have happened to the whole discipline of pragmatics in the past years. I would say in every decade it's getting better, and more cultural stuff is coming into pragmatics and also into the very center of pragmatics. And this is all great, and we have great names like Del Heims, and of course Anna and Cliff have all contributed to the fact that we can now freely speak about culture in pragmatics, and also as a central part of pragmatics in many conferences on pragmatics. So it's all actually going very well for those of us who think culturally about ways of speaking. So the next question then is, of course, how can we move this even further? And this is why I'm now talking about cultural metapragmatics, because the main arguments that I'm trying to make theoretically is that pragmatics is cultural, but metapragmatics is cultural too. And that pragmatics needs cultural semantics, as we all know, but metapragmatics needs cultural semantics too. And as we also all know, pragmatics needs NSM, but now we also need to say that metapragmatics needs NSM. And there are lots of technical definitions on metapragmatics. I'm trying to run with a fairly short one here: ways of speaking about ways of speaking. And let me try to also be super concrete on what is at stake here. And let me start off by this word here: speakers. I am a speaker of Danish. This is something I can say in English, but I cannot say it in Danish because there is no word for speaker or speakers in Danish. There are 6 billion speakers of Danish. We can say this in English, but not in Danish. And also a lot of our pragmatic theories, we will need speakers and hearers and, so the thing here is what to do with that. We could say that Danish should just get over it and get a good word for the English word speaker. Or we could say, I think Danish here is very similar to a lot of languages in the world that do not share with English this idea of a speaker. All right. So as some of you know, I'm very interested in Anglocentrism and the Anglocentrism of our disciplines, of our very disciplines. And this sort of speaks into a lot of things. So we can talk about languages and dialects and creoles and Englishes. These are all conceptualization in English, sharing, of course, with some European languages, a conceptualization more or less. And we have words like interaction and communication. We have some of the words that Gianmarco was just talking about before, F words and meta constructs like political correctness. And we have the traditional speech events and speech acts and speech genres. And all of these are sort of very influential in pragmatics and also in metapragmatics. And this is why I'm calling this the Anglo order of metapragmatics. And what I'm trying to do now is just slowly trying to present case studies that sort of does not really fit into this metapragmatic order. And what I'm going to do is just to present a very small corner of this research, but something that I found incredibly fascinating. And this is what I, for a lack of better words, would sort of tentatively call verbs of verbality. So words like English speak and talk, and they sound fairly basic, but they are not fully basic, of course. And this is also why they do not match, for instance, with some of the Scandinavian verbs of verbality. And I'm particularly interested in two words today: tale and snag in Danish, and also the Swedish tala, prota, snacka, because there are these three in Swedish, there are the two in Danish, and they do not really match speaking and talking. And it's a very sort of, I think, fertile ground for trying to get to the bottom of some of our deep issues and problems in pragmatics and metapragmatics. All right. So if, for instance, you look in tale and snage up in dictionaries, I'm talking about Danish English dictionaries, they will tell you that tale equals speak and talk, and snage talk and speak and maybe also chat. And then there will be some stylistic descriptors like the usual suspects, formal, informal, that stuff. So I think I'm fairly happy to claim, without sort of showing you any English explications on speaking and talking, that they do not equal this Danish grid of snage and tale. But let us move into our safe space first. So this is, I think, our safe space, namely the word say, or in Danish, sige, or in Swedish, säga. So Anna said something to Cliff about NSM, or Anna sagde noget til Cliff om NSM, og Anna sagde noget til Cliff om NSM. This is what we can rely on when we're trying to explicate the meanings of these verbs of verbality, and it will work in English, in Danish, and in Swedish. Okay. Just a little bit of an intro to these two verbs, fairly basic verbs. So this world famous Danish concept of hygge that you have probably all heard a lot about, also from me over the past 10 years. It's interesting to see that concept. It works only with one of these two verbs, namely with snage. You can hygge snage, but you could not hygge tale. And there's some kind of social, interactive kind of feel to snage that we can begin appreciating here. And tale is not so much. It's not so interactive. It's not so social in its profile. On the other hand, these many discourses of mansplaining will often attract this male who is tale on other people. Like you can spit on other people, then you can also tale on other people. You just keep saying something and saying something. You are not interactive. You're just saying something and not listening to that other person. It feels like they're spitting on you, but they are saying things, as we all know from our experiences with mansplaining. And then something interesting, I tried to look up in a corpus on what languages attract snage and what languages attract tale, because all languages combine with both. But one interesting fact was that French, of all the languages, attract tale the most. English is much more happy to go with also snage. And some of the Danish dialect names will be the ones sort of more on the snage side. So you have French and English and some Danish dialects. So this is just to get us warmed up into trying to find out what's going on with these two verbs. I also looked in the corpus for typical agents of these two verbs. So for instance, politicians will often tale, journalists, ministers, prime ministers, leaders, researchers, teachers, doctors, writers, and also God, Jesus, Paul, priest, and prophet. These are the one that turns up if I look for agents that typically occur with tale and not with snage in my corpus. Whereas for snage, it is no longer God, but it is my female friend who turns up the most. So female friends, mom, girlfriend, boyfriend, friend, dad, boy, and then a lot of names turn up as well. Frida, Peter, Johanne, etc. So this will tell us something more about the nature of these two verbs. And so based on this, I'm trying to, I know there are different frames, there are actually quite a lot of them. So I'm trying to find a very basic frame, a topical frame. And I've also just simply decided on someone talte about something and someone snagged about something. So I have these two in this frame. And this is a work in progress, of course. Someone said, I'm doing tale now, this first verb. Someone said something about something at that time. when he or she said it, he or she said it in like someone can say something. When someone thinks like this, I want people here to know something. And when someone says something in this way, people here can think like this. He, she knows many things about this thing. So this was my first go at tale, and now Snag. And I've sort of underlined here the main differences. And so I'm adding here, I want to say many things now, like I say many things to some, I have to remove the faces of all you guys when I'm looking at the explications. This is why this is not working. So, okay, I'll try again. I want to say many things now, like I say many things to some other people at many times when I know these people well. And then later on, maybe this someone doesn't know many things about this thing. So there's some kind of perceived knowledge difference if you are Taylor and if you're Snag. And there's also something about the sort of very informative nature of Taylor vis-a-vis the sort of built-in social model of Snag, even in a frame where we only have the topic. So this would be my first go at explicating these two Danish verbs. And then I thought, what about Swedish? Because the mystery here, of course, is that there are 3 Swedish basic verbs of verbality: tala, prota, and snacka. So what about this prota? So that is entering now into the to our discussion, because it only exists in Swedish among the Scandinavian languages, I think. It is of Low German origin, and you'll still find the Dutch praten. It appears to match Danish Snag, at least in the corpus profile. We will find many of the same patterns for Snag and for prata. So the question then is, if Snag and prata are equivalent, what then about the Swedish Snagga? Because there are 3, right, and not just 2. And then, by the way, Snagga is also of Low German origin. So what happens with all these Low German influences exactly in this field? I don't know. Maybe the taciturn Scandinavians needed some light on their verbal skills from the South. I'm not sure about this history, but it would be interesting to look into, and also to compare these with Dutch and with Northern German metapragmatics. So I'm now moving to further questions that I have, because this all takes me back to, so what about English speaking and English talking? Because they seem so basic, but what if they are not? What are they bringing into our discussions? What are they bringing into our explications? So, because I've seen quite a number of times that we have used the word speak. Can we safely use speak in NSM, in English, or in minimal English? Does it only mean saying something, or does it sort of attract something else as well? And what about my formulation just from before, saying that metapragmatics is the study of ways of speaking about ways of speaking? Wouldn't that also be Anglocentric? Are we deconstructing the whole field? Are we, what are we doing to ourselves? I think we should really think these things through. And then there's another thing that really stood out to me also in the work and the field work that I've done also with Swedish speakers. There is something about style here, and the semantic stylistics interface that seems to come up very often in the work I'm doing at the moment. We saw a little bit of that in Anja's talk as well, about style and semantics. And it's, yeah, I'm thinking that when we're talking about ways of doing and saying things, this isn't in essence about style then. So maybe there is no big difference between semantics and stylistics, or there could be stylistic components in our semantics. At least I would like us to think harder about stylistics and also about the semantic stylistics interface. And then finally, another question is, how can NSM work contribute to research in metapragmatics? Thank you.